A high-impact stretch of weather is developing right now, beginning with a significant severe weather threat today that includes an elevated threat of tornadoes. It will then transition into a powerful winter storm that's set to impact tens of millions of people, possibly followed by a nor'easter as we head into the weekend. As early as this afternoon, a strong upper-level disturbance will sweep across the Mississippi and Ohio River valleys. As warmer and more humid air surges northward ahead of this system, the atmosphere will become increasingly unstable, setting the stage for organized thunderstorms capable of producing damaging winds, large hail, and a few tornadoes. And while severe weather is happening, a dangerous winter storm will be developing with widespread heavy snow and gusty winds expected across the Midwest. And that's not all, because we are eyeing the potential for a nor'easter this weekend. An Arctic blast will clash with a pocket of moisture on Sunday. If this storm takes the right track, it could dump major snowfall across the East Coast. We have multiple storms that'll be impacting the United States over the next few days, but one of the most significant ones is happening today, as we are anticipating some significant severe weather across parts of the Ohio Valley. Over 10 million people are at risk of severe storms, and notice that we have a large one out of 5 marginal threat of severe weather. That's going to be in that dark green color, including Chicago, Cleveland, Canton, as far south, even as Clarksville, Tennessee. Our slight risk of severe weather is where we are talking about the possibility of a few tornadoes. This is where we're anticipating a lot more wind shear to be in place, warmer temperatures, higher dew points, meaning higher moisture, and also more instability, which is storm fuel, and that's going to be in place anywhere in the yellow. And I do think our greatest tornado threat for today will likely set up right in this corridor here. So if you're in Louisville, Evansville, Dayton, back into Cincinnati and Indianapolis, you guys all need to be staying very weather aware this afternoon. This is that tornado risk for today. We have a 5% tornado risk outlined in the brown shaded area. So Indianapolis, Noblesville, back into Cincinnati, you guys are at least in a low to medium tornado threat. This is where a more elevated tornado risk is expected. And then a much lower-end tornado threat will exist in Bloomington, Bowling Green, Lexington, and back into Columbus. There's also another severe weather threat tomorrow that we'll be talking more about here in a few minutes. A little marginal threat of severe weather across the southeast where some damaging winds will be possible. We could also see severe weather continuing into Saturday and maybe even a nor'easter. Now, today's environment is looking more and more favorable for tornadoes, and I do really think that this storm is actually taking a dangerous turn because our low pressure center is actually slowing down, which means that we're going to get more moisture, warmer air further to the north, and there's going to be way more storm fuel. So this is concerning for today's severe weather setup across the Ohio Valley. In fact, the Storm Prediction Center at least has a slight risk for right now. Wouldn't be surprised if that got upgraded later today. It's going to depend on trends here throughout the daytime today. But these are the STP values, which are your significant tornado parameter values. And where you see those reds and oranges mixing in across Kentucky and Illinois and even Indiana, this is where we could have a few tornadoes on the table later today. It's going to be right along a boundary, and there will also be some elevated convection, most likely off to the north. So that could kind of hinder some things. And depending on how widespread that convection is, it could stabilize some of the atmosphere. But I do think right in this corridor here from Cincinnati and Evansville into Louisville, I think this entire area needs to be very vigilant for a few tornadoes this afternoon, looking increasingly favorable in southeastern Illinois and southwestern Indiana. We should have a pretty favorable environment at least through about 8 or 9 o'clock tonight, and then things should wind down after that. But again, convection and the most severe storms will likely only be from about 12 hours today through about 6 or 7 bows. And then after 7 bow, most of the storms should be elevated or well off to the north into parts of Ohio and Pennsylvania. Let's talk more about the timing of severe weather, and we'll begin with what is happening this morning. We've already had some severe storms in northwest Indiana and northeastern Illinois overnight with some hail and a little bit of wind. Most of that is now moving into Michigan, mostly as elevated showers. A couple of hailstorms are still possible through about 11-12 o'clock today. Right around lunchtime is when we're expecting storm activity to start to uptick east of St. Louis. And this is the cluster of storms that we need to watch very closely because any sort of storm mergers that happen could easily lead to an elevated threat of tornadoes. By about 1 o'clock this afternoon, we are going to be talking about several supercells ongoing. These right here are the ones to really keep an eye on, because this will be right along our most favorable boundary of ingredients, including a lot of wind shear, a lot of instability, and also a lot of moisture is forecasted. Further to the north, we have several storms ongoing, especially around and west of Indianapolis, but I do think these are going to be more elevated in nature. However, there could be a couple storms behind that could end up producing a risk of tornadoes, so we'll be watching those very closely. By 2 o'clock, there could be a few supercells ongoing right along the Indiana-Kentucky border and also eastern Illinois, where tornado threat should continue. By 3 to 4 o'clock, storms continue to push to the east, and we will still likely have an ongoing tornado threat as long as no major changes to the forecast happen here over the next few hours. With the current forecast and ingredients, this is looking like a very ripe environment for severe weather today. By around 6 to 7 o'clock, storms will still be ongoing, but I do think this is when things are going to get a lot more messy. A lot of the activity out there will be more elevated in nature. It'll be mostly rain with maybe some hail mixed in there, perhaps some gusty winds. Along with that, we should have some other convection going up across Kentucky and Tennessee, but the mid-levels will be much drier by this point. So, severe weather is not anticipated, even though there will be plenty of wind shear across areas like Nashville and central Kentucky, and then overnight hours into early Friday morning is when things will be clearing out. And we could even see some snow showers back over northern Indiana by Friday around lunchtime. Now, this isn't the only problem that this storm is going to bring, because as we go into tonight and tomorrow, we will have a pretty large area of heavy snow on the backside of this, including areas like Des Moines back into eastern Nebraska near Omaha. It will become more widespread tonight into early tomorrow morning across Wisconsin, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and even northern Illinois. If you're near Chicago, you guys could see some snowflakes tomorrow. We're talking about some severe weather today possibly, and then tomorrow we're talking about some light snowfall. We'll also have heavy snowfall ongoing across parts of New England. It'll be a very quick transition between snow, freezing rain, and rain. Light icing possible around southeastern New York, northeastern Pennsylvania. Heavy snow will continue in southern New England. This storm system will eventually weaken as we go into late Friday night and Saturday. And you might be thinking, that's it for this storm, right? Well, maybe not, because we could actually have some Arctic air coming out of Canada Saturday. This storm system becomes a lot broader in nature. Very weak low pressure center over areas near Lake Erie, and then some moisture coming out of the south. There's going to be a lot of interesting things happening Saturday that could actually spiral into maybe some sort of winter storm event along the East Coast on Sunday and Monday. This is still very up in the air, and for this being only about 3 to 4 days from now, there's a lot of uncertainty right now in the intensity of the storm system, but I do think we could be talking about a significant winter storm for parts of mid-Atlantic and the Northeast sometime on Sunday and Monday. Sunday for right now looks like it'll be a larger area of just light snowfall with a weak coastal storm being possible. But late Sunday is where things get highly uncertain along the East Coast. This is where models are basically all over the place. They don't really know what's going to happen. The GFS model here is showing a very intense coastal storm system with very heavy snowfall in Virginia, Maryland, New Jersey, back into Pennsylvania, has it intensifying into a bomb cyclone early Monday. And this is something that the GFS has shown for several days now. It's just been on and off on placement and whatnot. The European model, on the other hand, has a much weaker storm system and it just has a lot of snow, but it's very light in nature. So again, this is not a slam dunk for right now, but definitely make sure that you're subscribed to the channel, because if this ends up happening, it could be a very big deal. We could be talking easily a foot plus of snowfall right along the East Coast. But again, it's going to come down to the placement of the storm system, and if it's actually going to rapidly intensify, like the GFS model is showing. As we go into next week, things will get a little bit quieter. We'll have some light snowfall across areas like the upper Midwest, perhaps another winter weather event by the middle of next week. And then beyond this, by Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, things get a lot more uncertain. However, it does look like we're at least getting some decent signals right now of severe weather making a return to areas in the southern plains and the southeast during the last week of February and into early March. And keep in mind, we are not very far away from severe weather season kicking off. If this winter storm does pan out, we could see a lot of snow. This is the National Weather Service blend of models. It does not show that much snow. it shows a widespread 2 to 5 inches for most areas, with areas in central and northern New England picking up almost a foot. This right here would be more from the event that's happening tonight and into tomorrow, and also a little bit into early Saturday. But this is the GFS model, which is the model I just showed you. And again, I'm not entirely sure that anything like this will end up happening. If this ends up happening, we'd be talking about a possibly historic nor'easter along the East Coast. But nonetheless, there is definitely a possibility that over a foot of snow could occur if this storm rapidly intensifies. We don't know if that's going to happen yet. Tomorrow we'll have a much better idea though. And the upper Midwest is also expected to pick up several inches of snow here over the next 24 hours. Areas like Des Moines back into central Wisconsin anticipating at least 4 to 8 inches of snow. The upper peninsula of Michigan is expecting a boatload of snowfall out of this winter storm. And also on top of what we're going to be seeing most likely next week, which should add on at least a few more inches. And winter is nowhere near done. We are expecting a significant temperature roller coaster over the next several days. Arctic blasts will arrive Sunday into Monday, impacting almost the entire eastern seaboard. By Tuesday and Wednesday, could have another shot of Arctic air back over in the Midwest and the Northeast. But by next weekend and into early March, the GFS model is showing several signals of colder air. So this is definitely something we'll be keeping an eye on. I do not think winter is anywhere near done. We should at least have 1 or 2 more big winter storms before this winter is done, and we are into severe weather season. The dangerous turn this storm system is taking represents a particularly concerning development in what was already shaping up to be a high-impact weather event. The slowing of the low-pressure center creates conditions that meteorologists recognize as especially favorable for severe weather development, as it allows more time for atmospheric instability to build and for moisture transport to continue feeding the system. What makes this situation particularly noteworthy is the transition from severe weather threats to winter storm conditions and then potentially into a major coastal storm system. This type of evolution requires different types of preparation and response across multiple regions, creating challenges for both forecasters and emergency management officials who must coordinate responses to multiple hazard types occurring in rapid succession. The uncertainty surrounding the potential nor'easter development highlights the challenges inherent in forecasting complex storm systems several days in advance, particularly when atmospheric patterns are already active and multiple systems are interacting. The significant differences between major forecast models underscore the importance of continued monitoring as the event approaches and more observational data becomes available.